Welcome to Your ADHD Life. This is Dr. Kirsten Milliken, and today I am talking with former NBA star Swen Nater, who was one of John Wooden's players at UCLA. He's going to talk to us about some of the strategies that Coach Wooden used to work with any player, no matter what their learning style. You are not going to want to miss this. Enjoy the show. Do you have any questions before we start?
No.
Okay. You're like, whatever, just roll with it. We're good. We're good. So, Swen Nater, welcome to Your ADHD Life.
Thank you, Kirsten.
I am excited. You and I met a few years ago at a conference. You know this, but I'm letting our audience know, at a conference for public speaking, as a matter of fact. So, and I think that you were the only person maybe taller than me at the conference, which was great. And one of my favorite memories, I have to say, it was a good conference, but my favorite memory was of us at the hotel room. And one morning they were playing some really good music in the lobby at the hotel. And you grabbed me and we started dancing. And that was just, it was fantastic. So for those of you who don't know Swen, he is a two-time ABA All-Star. He's a leading rebounder in the NBA and ABA. This is another fact that I actually remembered about you too, that you're a member of the 30-30 club, where you scored at least 30 points and had 30 rebounds in the same game. And if I remember right, there's only like 6 people who are in that club. Is that still true?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Not done very often.
And you were nominated as the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. You have written 5 books, including the one that I always keep coming back to, which is You Haven't Taught Until They've Learned, which is about some of the things that you learned from Coach John Wooden at UCLA. And you're also a motivational speaker, hence the reason we were both at that speaking conference.
Mm-hmm.
You played for the Bruins, the Bucks, the Braves. There was a little streak going there. And then he moved from the B's to the C's and went into the Clippers. and then Swen played for the Lakers, where you played with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And after that, you started coaching and actually did a really fantastic job bringing your team all the way to the championships. If you didn't know that, Swen, this is your life.
I didn't know that. I actually went to Europe after the Lakers. I played in Italy one year.
I missed that one. I missed that
awesome.
one. Awesome. My God. So,
and you know, I won a championship as a head coach coaching at Christian Heritage College, San Diego, El Cajon, California, which is now San Diego Christian. It was a small school championship. But, that was one year. We were good the year before, but we were terrible the other years. And I guess the only thing they remember is the championship. A lot of it depends how good your players are, doesn't it, Kirsten?
It does, absolutely. You can't get out there and do it for them, can you? So it's all in what they've learned from you beforehand. So the show's for people, parents and teachers and professionals and people who have ADHD. And one of the things that a lot of them struggle with is learning, because we're in a typical classroom setting or a typical work environment, and it can be difficult. And
I didn't hear what you said. I wasn't paying attention.
What?
I'm hearing you.
And you and I talked, though. We talked when we were down in Florida about the fact that, when kids play basketball, when kids are playing sports, there's no such thing as the kid who has ADHD and the kid who doesn't. Everybody kind of gets onto a level playing field in that setting. And can you talk a little bit about your thoughts about how that happens, what happens on the court?
It's a known fact that players that in the classroom have trouble staying focused, have no trouble staying focused on the court. It's pretty obvious why. There's a game going on, there's competition. We're playing games inside of practice, maybe a shooting competition and we're going from one thing to the other, right?
Yep.
Now, if the coach, wants to scrimmage and stop the scrimmage, and scrimmage meaning 5-on-5 going full court. He stops it. And he talks for 10 minutes about something, which some coaches do, and then they go back to the play. So some players are going to lose concentration because you're not. There's not one thing going on, right? We're not going somewhere with this, and I'm not looking forward to something. When you have competition, you're looking forward to beating the other players, right?
Right.
And winning. We're trying to win.
Right.
And everybody likes that. Well, not everybody, but I certainly do. And the guys that are the most hyper, I guess, and we had some at UCLA that were more high-strung than others, and I don't know if that was ADHD or not, but those guys tend to do very well in a high-pace basketball practice situation. So, what's going on is they're on their feet, for one, instead of sitting in a chair, right? They're doing something they like, and they're competing.
Yep.
So it's a natural, and if the coach is smart, he'll just keep that going all practice long. Coach Wooden was very, very big on making drills conditioning, making a drill a conditioning drill and a competitive drill as much as possible.
So challenge or competition are some of the motivators that we talk about people with learning differences really key into. So
yeah. When you get to that level at UCLA, you've played a lot of basketball already, and you've played a lot of one-on-one games in the summer, or 2-on-2, 3-on-3, and 5-on-5. So you like games, and most of the guys that I played with, I'm in this room right here. I don't know if you can see this, but this is my man cave.
Nice big man cave. Oh, pool table.
Right,
nice.
And then we've got a pool table and a foosball. I don't know if you can see the foosball table.
Yep.
My guitar, and
all kinds of ways to play. Yeah,
my grandkids come over and they come down here and they spend the whole day down here, right? They're nice. 7. I don't know if any of them have an attention problem. I don't know. My oldest one, he's an older 7. He's almost 8. He may a little bit. I hear in the classroom he doesn't always listen, but down here
he's 7 or 8 and he's a boy. It's okay.
Down here, there's no such thing.
Yeah. So tell me more. Again, going back to that title of your book, which is You Haven't Taught Until They've Learned, which was really about how Coach Wooden taught. I know that there's a lot of lessons to be learned from that, but what do you think was the difference about how he was teaching that got you and the other players to excel, to be present, and to do your best?
The title, I think, says it all.
Mm-hmm.
That is, you haven't taught until they've learned. And I got that title from him, actually. But I came to him when I was coaching, and I said, I was a great rebounder, but I can't get my players to rebound. I've taught them how to rebound, but they're not doing it. And he said, there's no such thing. You can't say you've taught them if they're not doing it.
Yeah.
And then he went on to say that if the result is not happening, you have to find a way. You have to find a way to make it happen. So, and that's really what he was all about. And here's something I think people need to know that Coach Wooden passed on, and that is, if you really want to study teaching, study learning.
Yeah.
Study how they learn, and you'll learn how to teach, right? And a lot of people forget that step where they do it backwards.
Yep.
So, Coach was always trying to improve things, but his whole thing was he wanted us to learn as much as possible in a basketball practice. So how did he do that? He organized the practice extremely well, to the minute, right?
Yep.
But it was all based on there was a theme for basketball practice. There was a goal for the basketball practice. Example, we're going to install the UCLA cut and the down screen on the weak side. Okay, that's basketball stuff, right? But that's what we're going to do. So then everything in the practice, except for maybe the basic fundamental drills that are warm-ups, we're focused, had something to do with building that through the practice, putting the pieces together, you know. So he would show us the whole thing first.
Yep.
At the beginning of practice. We would walk through the play, and then he would break it up into little pieces, like the guards and forwards go over here, the center and some forwards go over here and work on this part, and then he'd put maybe some over here and start putting it together until finally it's 5-on-5, and then we do it. and that's basically it. So we played a lot of basketball, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5. To do that. So he organized the practice, and then he found ways to teach. You know, he went to psychology classes at UCLA. He sat in. The professor allowed him to just look at the class, and then he'd pick the professor's brain afterwards, and he'd read everything he could on the subject of some part of learning. And he came up with some real interesting things that he applied. One was what I said, the whole method,
Yes.
where you show the whole, make it really clear, right? This is what we're going to be doing in a 5-on-5 situation, and some of the reasons why, right? And then break it down into pieces and put it back together to the whole. If you can see the whole, then it makes sense when you're doing the pieces.
Yes.
Sometimes, we look at dance instruction I don't know. There's, well, my wife and I, Wendy and I, do dancing, right? Ballroom dancing. Yep. And so there's a dance instructor not too far away from here, and every Monday we go. And she doesn't show what it's supposed to look like. She starts with the pieces. Yep. And you've probably experienced that.
Yep.
Well, here's the first step. Let's do the steps first, and let's do that. Well, I'd like to see two people doing it really well,
right?
So that I know where I'm going with this, where
yes.
I want to go. And
you need to have that image in your head of what you're aiming for, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And he found out that worked. Okay. Another thing that worked was if you introduce a new drill, something new, don't teach it the same day you introduce it. Introduce it on, say, Monday. Just briefly.
Yep.
Here's what we're going to be doing tomorrow, and then do it the next day. Yes. They'll remember. It'll sink in, and they'll be ready. Because hey, you don't know if you're going to be first in line. Having to do this, it's embarrassing.
That's right. That's right.
Remember, right? Another thing was when he corrected, and without exception, he did this. He found out that if you correct somebody's mistake, the first thing you should do is show them how it should have been done. Right? So if a player cuts off a screen, some guy's setting a screen for him, and he's using that screen to get his man caught there so he can free himself for a jump shot. And maybe he didn't fake this way first, right? And he didn't lose his man. Coach would stop that, and he would say, well, here's what it should look like, right? And then he said, well, here's how you did it. And he'd show him. Yep. And then again, he'd say, here's how it should look like. Now, what that does is many things, but two very important things is first, when you start with what it should look like, you are not embarrassing the person you're correcting. As opposed to, no, here's how you did it, now you got to do it like this, right? When people get embarrassed, they don't learn.
That's right, shuts our brains down.
You watch the next basketball game, NCAA, when a coach takes a player out and starts yelling at him, the player never looks him in the eye. He's looking away, the whole crowd and everybody on TV is watching. He's not going to learn. So by just saying, here's how it should be done, that avoids embarrassment, or at least some. Yep. But also, it gives you a picture of what it should look like to compare to the way you did it,
Yes.
right? And then that, so implicitly, you understand the difference. And you're already, before he even says anything, you go, oh, okay, I see the difference, right?
Yep.
Again, really cool, really good for you, really healthy.
Well, it also demonstrates that when, for lack of another word right the second, but when we fail or when we don't meet the expectation, sometimes that's the best time to learn if it's done right. As you pointed out, if you embarrass the person in that moment, you've totally lost the opportunity. Whereas if you model what you were looking for and do a supportive correction, that, yep, strong.
Yeah, so good point. The only time to correct is right after something happens.
That's right. And yep.
You want to wait, right? And that happens. That's true for parenting or whatever. Just stop and teach. But how you teach, and how you in a way that all that information gets transferred to someone, is so that the result is they're doing it a whole lot better right away. And you can easily try different methods and as a coach and see the difference,
Right.
and so he did. So basically, and that helps your relationship with your players. It helps build relationships and trust.
Yes.
Because what a coach really wants the coach wants the players to trust him, that he's there for them to help them succeed, not for him to get so many wins and just a few losses or get his name in the paper. And it's easy to get caught up in that with the press if you have a successful team, as a coach.
Yep.
That it's about me, or at least I had a part in it. Coach Wooden never even accepted any a pat on the back. He always passed it on to his players, particularly those, not the ones that were scoring all the points,
right.
but the other guys.
Yep.
But anyway, so that's, building relationship is all about building trust and humility and working your tail off for your players and backing them up, right?
Yep.
Backing them up. I mean, even if the athletic director comes in, and I don't know what he would do to a player, but you back your players up as best you can. There's a line that you have to draw. Yep. If they smoke marijuana in school and they're caught, you're not going to back them up. But that should have been covered before. So the teaching. You leave that marijuana with me right here. I'll take good care of it. So, and that's really what the book is about. It's presenting John Wooden, the greatest men's basketball coach of all time, college, anyway. Right?
But he's also one of the greatest teachers. I mean, I love some of the things you say. First of all, that in order to be a great teacher, you have to learn about learning, and that's what Coach Wooden did. He went into the psychology classes and figured out how people learn, the psychology of learning, and also that it wasn't about him. A lot of teachers say, I don't know, they just don't want to be taught. The kid just doesn't want to be taught, or, it's always about the kids either are learning or they're not, and it's on the kids. I'm doing my best. If they don't learn, it's on them. And the concept that no, you need to figure out how the kids who are not maybe keeping up on the court or in class, mm-hmm. what it is about their learning style that they're not catching on how you're teaching. That the responsibility is on the teacher for that.
Went to a basketball game last night, a high school basketball game, first playoff game, and I've helped this coach quite a bit.
Yep.
And they didn't play well. They didn't do what they should have been doing. There were guys taking shots that had no business taking shots. They went away from the offense. And the coach called me after the game, and he was complaining about the players.
Mm.
Okay, I don't need to say anymore, right?
I want to hear the end of the story.
I said, you need to accept full responsibility.
Yeah.
We know in reality there are variables, right? The players could have decided,
Lots.
what the heck, I'm shooting this one up. I'm casting this one up from half court. That's something that you didn't teach him, but he did. They go away from that.
Right.
But the whole the concept in this book is that if the teacher accepts full responsibility,
yeah,
and does everything she or he can to facilitate learning, great things are going to happen.
Yeah.
And you keep doing that, right? Your whole life, right? It's a lifelong endeavor. But that's what Coach Wooden did. And there are a few who did it to the extent he did. Every off season, he took one part of the game of basketball and studied it fully. He read every book written on the subject, every periodical, and if he were around today, it would be every website, and that'd be a lot. He interviewed people, right?
Yeah.
He interviewed a lot of people, and he drew his conclusions.
Yeah.
So, one summer it was maybe out of bounds plays, another summer half court offense, zone defense, which he didn't use often, but he probably studied it, rebounding, the screening, things like that. So since 1948, from 1948 to 1975,
yeah,
every summer, continually learning, trying to master the game of basketball. So take, as a teacher, well, we've all been in schools, I've got 30 kids. There's no way I can do it. And maybe you're right. Yeah. Maybe it's almost impossible. But you can't think that way. You have to figure out a way, can you get some help from someone? Can Microsoft come over and send a few people, or can they create a computer program for you that would help you with your lessons? Okay, can you make games in the classroom to make it fun? Oh my God, there's a guy named Cal Calavetti. He's no longer teaching now in Victorville, California. Okay, this is up in the high desert as you're going from LA, San Bernardino, Victorville, and then off to Las Vegas, right? So Cal, as we call him, I was able to get in his classroom and watch him teach for a whole day.
Yep. He
had raffle tickets going. Every time somebody did something, raffle ticket. Half goes here, half goes in the jar, right?
Yep.
He taught a multiplication table in 1 hour.
Wow.
And everybody knew at the end of the hour, knew all of the sevens.
Yep.
It was a game, it was competition. It was elimination.
Yep.
There was repetition. 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 3 is, and then, okay, here we go. Get a piece of paper. Ready? Blank piece of paper. Ready? 7 times 2. Everyone. 6 times 7. 4 times 7. And you go faster. And somebody goes, oh, keep doing it. He brings a Kleenex box. Do you need a Kleenex? Are you going to cry? He knew who he could do that with and who he couldn't.
Well, he probably had built that trust with them. Yep.
Yep. And he had students in charge of pencils, sharpening pencils, distributing paper. Everybody was like a team in there, where everybody had a function for the whole day on how that thing ran. It was amazing, and different functions at different times.
Yep.
Roll call at the beginning, right? First of all, you run a lap around the school, and then we go into class.
Yes.
Okay? Then we sit down, and once we get in that door, nobody says anything. Nobody says a word. All of a sudden, roll call. Kid stands up. The first person says their name, and it's all nicknames. He gave everyone a nickname. Randy. Stupid. No. And you know how in roll call you go, Amanda here? Yep. Rhonda? Yes. Bobby? Yes. They did theirs in order. So that when there was a pause, that means the next person was absent.
Yep.
So all that kid did, who was taking roll, was mark down the absence when there was a pause. He said, okay, go ahead. Run into the office. Did it in one fraction of the time that it normally would, right? These are things that this guy did. And he found a way to teach literal comprehension. That was a turning things around. You know, master teacher. But is it because he's really smart? Is it because he's really talented? No. He just decided that he was going to find a way for these kids to do this. He taught math so well, he ran the math club, and Victorville won the championship just about every year, 5th, 6th grade.
Amazing. Yeah.
So that's the book, right? Find a way, find ways, be creative. That's the fun in teaching.
I may be wrong, but I think that Cal actually has a website up with some of the stuff on it that he did in his class. I may be wrong, but I think I saw the site a little while ago. I'll find it and put it up. Yeah. There are those teachers like that who take it on and make learning fun and engaging, and they have figured out some of the strategies for keeping a well-oiled classroom so that everybody's learning and engaged, almost all of the time.
You want another example?
I do want another example.
Okay. Say please.
Please.
Okay.
Look at how easy that is. You have me engaged. I'm like, because as you're telling these stories, I'm very visual, and I get these little movies running in my head of what's happening. It's really fun.
This is 9th grade.
Yep.
Jefferson Middle School, Long Beach, California. Journalism class. This class was created by the principal for Rita Rockty, who was fresh out of college, a very gifted teacher. He already knew her, and he said, "It's very gifted." Created journalism and poetry together, right?
In 9th grade.
In 9th grade. So Rita Rockty was teaching journalism, and every day we had a different lesson, whatever. And one day, she got up to the board. We're all sitting, and we're always going to like, "What's he going to do today, right?" And she writes down, observation. A journalist needs to have observation. The door opens up, slams open. This guy walks in. He's one of the other teachers. He's supposed to be in his classroom teaching. He starts yelling at Mrs. Rockty. I mean, he was yelling at her. She was back against a table like this. She had her chalk in her hand and everything. She's going, "What's going on now?" She didn't say call the principal, but she says, "You need to back off. You need to go." She says, "I can't believe that you said this and this and this." And I forget what he was saying. But he slammed, and he took her chalk out of her hand and slammed it and broke it. And then he walked out the door and slammed it. She turned to us and said, "Get out a piece of paper and a pencil and write down everything that you saw and heard. I want to know the color of his shoelaces." And we go, "Oh man, we didn't know." This is what journalism is.
Yeah. In
the midst of crisis, in the midst of whatever, you need to be picking up facts and much as possible. So now you know, right? And Rita Rockty lives in Milwaukee area, and I'm still in contact with her, and she still helps me with poetry.
All right. And you've written, one of your books is The Reason for Rhyme, right? Was poetry that you had written to Coach Wooden.
Yeah, and the first poem I remember reading was the one she gave us in class. And I don't know if you know this, it's called Richard Cory. Richard Cory, it was Simon and Garfunkel wrote a song about Richard Cory. So Richard Cory was this perfect man, slim, imperially slim, the author said. So all these royal words in there. It was a perfect iambic pentameter all the way through, 3 stanzas. And everyone wanted to be like him. And every time he went downtown, people stopped and stared because there goes Richard Cory.
Yep.
And one summer day, Richard Cory went home and put a bullet through his head.
Yes.
Now, I'm 15 years old, and this poem is on the board. Yeah. And it shocked me, right? But man, did we have good discussions. And also, I found out that poetry has rhythm, and that rhythm gets you into a state of, I don't know, it sucks you in. And this poem brought you up and just dropped you.
Yes.
Right? So it's an emotional wham like this. And this, so good poetry has rhythm and generates emotion.
Yes.
And really great poetry makes you do something, makes you make a change, right? And that's so that's Rita Rockty.
So
She found us to teach.
it sounds like well, I want to go back to, so she did this thing on observation, and then had this emotional moment where there was this confrontation in front of you. Do you recall the lesson that came out of that, as far as how your emotional state affects what you're doing in the moment?
Yes. First of all, we had to come up with as many things as we could, and we,
Right.
you know, and
Right.
we did. And she put us in small groups, which was really good to do for this, so that not one person would have like nothing, you know. So,
Yep.
And it's amazing when you're in small groups how you can come up with things that happened or that you saw that you wouldn't have gotten
Right.
had everybody been on their own, right? So,
Right.
oh yeah, I think I saw. Did you? Yeah, I think I. You know, and I mean, it was even down to how many pieces the chalk broke into, or you know, what he said when he did that.
Yep.
Or you know, how close he was to her at times, what his name was, what time, you know, all of those things.
Yep.
Came in. So, and then we had other lessons. She took us out. She took us to watch the drama team, and they did a little skit, a little piece of the play.
Yep.
A very dramatic piece, and we had to come up with as much as possible. And man, were we ready! This is like Coach Wooden introducing an activity we're going to be doing the next day, the day before.
Yes.
When you do it the next day, you are ready. You know,
Yep.
you understand it and everything. It saves time and it improves learning. So, and that's the whole point, right? And it's the art of teaching to improve learning, maximize learning. Right?
Yep.
I had I think a 5th grade teacher that changed times to of for multiplication.
Uh-huh.
He realized when we say 5 times 3, kids don't have any idea what you're talking about. I mean, they might be able to do it, but they don't understand what that really is, right?
Yes.
Because times to them, all they've heard is, how many times have I told you to do this, you know? And these are good times, right?
That's right.
Or bad times. But when you change that to of, 5 of 3, now you can see it.
Yep.
You can see 5 of them.
Yep.
And then you can take, you know, what is that, grid or whatever they call that, and with 3 this way and 5 that way. And you can see that 5 of 3 is the same as 3 of 5.
That's right. I like to brag about this, and I don't think that I probably do it often enough, but my older son, who is now 17 years old, when he was in pre-K, not even kindergarten yet, he's always loved math. He's very good at it. And he understood the concept of multiplication because of exactly what you're talking about. We would say, you know, if you have 3 of 5, right? 5 sets of 3, what does that mean? And he would figure it out. So he was doing multiplication in pre-kindergarten because he understood that concept of,
Nice.
having Yep. Multiple groupings of a number.
And then there's division, right?
Yep.
5 divided by 4. What does that mean?
Right.
Is 4 dividing something?
Right.
What's 4 doing, right? Well, how about or 20 divided by 4?
Right. Do an easier one. That's not a fraction.
Right. So how about how many 4s fit into 20?
Yeah.
Fit instead of divided by.
Yep.
You can always go to divided by, once they learn it and say, okay, this is what it also means.
Right.
Like, percentages and things like that work the same way. But start with where they can see it, because, it isn't long and it's inevitable that math is going to get abstract. It's when you get into fractions and, some of the algebras and things, that you're going to have to do it up here.
Yep.
But keep it down here in the real world as long as possible to build the foundation of understanding.
I really appreciate the concept of just changing the words so that it becomes a visual problem that you're working on, as opposed to this abstract numbers and dividing, which really, again, doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot when you're younger. Yeah. And I think even in an older age, I mean, if I can visualize things, it makes much more sense. I recently took a real estate class, and it was a lot of information crammed into a short amount of time, and they did very rote teaching. It was, say a fact and then give the rote answer to it over and over again as we were going through all of this. And I was one of the first ones in the group of people that I kept in contact with to take the state licensing exam. And they all said, so how was it? And I said, it was hard, because if you don't understand the concept of what we learned, you're not going to be able to answer it, because the questions were asked very differently. They were asked using different words. You really had to understand the concept, which is, again, like creating the visual, taking it apart, putting it back together. And if we all learned it the right way, just, 5 times 4 is 20, 5 times 5 is 25, you don't understand the concept. You just know what the answer is, as long as you're presented in a certain way. So Swen, our time is winding down. I have a question for you.
Yes.
If one of your grandkids had a different style of learning than most kids and was struggling in school, what do you think you would want from his or her teacher? What would you want them to know? Or what would you ask of them?
Well, first I'd want to know how they're teaching, what the teaching style is. Mm-hmm. And of course you have parent-teacher conferences and things, where you learn some things, I think. Yeah. I would definitely tell the teacher as much as I know about my child, my grandchild, or yeah. If it was my child, right? Yeah. And what they like, what they look forward to, yeah, what they talk about. Right? I'd have if I know at that conference what you and I know. Yep. I'd have a hard time not saying something, right? Yeah. I don't know.
I kind of put you on the spot with that
one. Yeah, you have to. I guess I'd ask questions. Okay, how much activity? He's a very active boy. Yep. And he likes to get up. He likes to play games. Do you do that? Do they sit in their chair all the time? Or, well, yeah, they do, and that's the way it is. I have rearranged the chairs into a circle, so it really helps. But yeah, we're there doing paperwork. And do you ever get them for a math problem? Divide the class into halves and then into halves or something to show what fractions are or anything like that, where they're standing up. I would ask that, but if it's a teaching problem, I'm gonna have to go higher.
It is a difficult question because, again, there are a lot of variables. You don't know how the teacher's going to approach it. You don't know, what's going on in the classroom, how much support the teacher has, those kinds of things. So,
well, I would ask, how do you, if the child needs help, right, and getting behind, I would ask the teacher, what is your plan?
Yeah.
I would ask that first.
That's a great question. Yeah.
Well, I think Ritalin would be good.
Well, and again, that's putting it back on the kid, right? So.
Of course.
Yeah.
There's no Ritalin needed in basketball practice, and
no.
It shouldn't be in the classrooms if they're done right. So there are enough creative teachers out there that we see examples of it that are engaging the children.
Swen, is there anything that you want to leave our audience with real quickly about learning in general?
Again, that if you want to be a great teacher, you have to study learning in depth.
Yeah.
How people learn, and tailor your teaching accordingly. Yeah. Another thing is never give up. Keep trying different things. Edison, so many great examples of people that never gave up and found something really, really different and cool. But if you think long enough, if you stop and think, well, how can I change? What can I do? Let's take an example. And I'm not going to remember all of this, but, so we went to Warner Brothers Studios. I'll just make this quick. We went to Warner Brothers Studios last weekend, okay, on the tour. Warner Brothers had some great movies, and all of the pictures that were best pictures, picture of the year, Academy Awards, were up on the wall. And I said, I'm going to try to find a way to memorize these, right? So the first was Casablanca. So I thought, okay, it's a casa, right? And then the next one, so I'm doing a visualization. And the next one, well, that casa is worth $1 million. That's $1 Million Baby. Okay, out of the casa comes, who was it that came out of it? That's the one I can't remember. It was one of the Disney characters or something.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it was like I don't know, it was a movie of anyway, some lady that was like a fairy tale, okay? Like Cinderella or something. She comes out, and then, so that's a movie, and then she gets into a chariot.
Oh, it was Driving Miss Daisy.
Oh, no, that's later.
Okay.
She gets into a chariot. There's chariots of fire. There's chariots of fire.
Yep. The
chariot turns into a limo. That's Driving Miss Daisy. Who's driving Miss Daisy?
Cool Hand Luke.
Cool Hand Luke.
Oh my God.
and they're departing.
So the Departed.
Departed.
And they're going to
Argo.
Argo.
Oh my God.
If you know Ron
Clark,
one of the great teachers. There's a movie out a long time ago, a Ron Clark story with, he was on Friends. He was the main actor. Ron Clark invented the president's rap so that his students could memorize all the presidents.
Yep.
Find a way, make it fun. And Ron Clark was sitting in his apartment and he's trying to think of how in the world am I going to get these kids to memorize the presidents. And there's this idiot right upstairs with a boombox, boom, 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 and he's going, oh my God, I can't think. But wait a minute. The president's right.
That's right.
Make it your life to help kids learn. And it's a lot of fun. Teaching is very hard work. It can be very frustrating, especially if you're like teaching English where you have to grade all these papers. Math is easy. If I would be a teacher, I'd be a math teacher. But Wendy was an English teacher too, high school.
There you go. So Swen Nater, I'm going to wrap up. Wendy, special guest, surprise guest today. We're hoping we're going to get you back. But I want to thank you so much for being on Your ADHD Life today.
was our pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank you. If you've enjoyed the show, please like us on Facebook at facebook.com/YourADHDLife. This is Dr. Kirsten Milliken. Until next time, have fun and find ways to play.